Thank you for making it out. First Wednesday of the month, connecting things. Wow, we're super excited for 2015, what the year has. So we just want to open it up now to our good friend Joel. Yeah, here you go, brother.
Thank you. So before I start rambling, I just want to thank all the guys that pulled this together with Connected Things. When I agreed to do this, it was like 12 of us at Wolf Camp sipping coffee, so this is blown up. I'm super stoked to see it. I moved down here recently, like last year, from the Bay Area, and I knew that these people all existed, that you guys were all here, and I'm stoked that we're all kind of coming together through this venue, and I'm kind of humbled to be able to speak with you guys today. Let's get that out of the way. So, I wanted to talk about comfort. It's been something that I've been dealing with a lot lately. I moved down here to get a little bit more comfortable. The Bay Area moves really fast. My good friend Mark here at Google got me into Google, introduced me to a team, and got me back to Southern California. I want to be here for my family. And so this has been something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. But before I get like too sentimental, that's getting comfortable, I want to just give a little background of some of my work and some of the things I've done for those of you that don't know me, which is probably most of you since there's so many people here. So I've worked at a couple places. I'm technically a UI designer by trade, UX. Do a lot of apps on mobile and desktop applications. For those of you that aren't super nerdy and design oriented, I'll give you just kind of overview of some of the work that I've done and then go back and how I kind of got to where I am today. So AppStack is a really bad logo I have tattooed on my body. This is really sensitive. It was a startup that I went to in Temecula when I was in Southern California. I was the design director for AppStack, was the first employee, and kind of designed things from the bottom up. So I designed a lot of buttons, a lot of web pages and marketing sites. And this was really my first intro into digital design. I was previously a print designer and had no idea what I was doing. I took a big leap, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into in the end. But I had never designed a mobile app. This was the first chance to do it, and I had a good friend, Steve Espinoza, that kind of trusted me. He was like, look, you're a good designer. You can do this. Like, I just need someone in Temecula to design for me. So this was kind of my first step at a lot of this stuff, and it was really fun. We had some mild success and was published a couple places. We're basically building mobile-friendly websites for small businesses to get acquisition via Google search, super nerdy stuff. But we basically had a lot of templates like this for mobile phones that I got to design, which was really fun. We got published, and I immediately went to Netflix as soon as someone called me. This was something I never thought I would be able to do. I met somebody at South by Southwest who's a really good friend of mine now. He called me and was like, hey, we're looking for people to work at Netflix. You're doing this thing. And I never thought I would be able to do that. But had a long talk with my wife and realized that there's a lot of opportunity up there. It's a big risk. We had just had our first kid. And yeah, we took the dive and moved to the Bay Area. This is what I got to work on. It's one of my favorite apps. I love Netflix. I haven't had cable for almost 6 years now. So to be able to work on the iPhone and iPad and Android and Windows tablets was really, really a cool thing to be able to work on a big product and only been doing it for so little a time. So if you use the app today, a lot of the stuff I've worked on is still in there. I redesigned the overall graphic user interface. Also got to work with a lot of the Hollywood team when we launched Originals. So a lot of the House of Cards, Orange New Black, Arrested Development, all of these creatives and experiences on the tablets and TVs, I was on that team. So it's really cool to launch into kind of a new revenue stream for Google or for Netflix. Yeah, that's really bad. A new revenue stream for Netflix and explore kind of this new territory for them. So this is, global marketing and creative for all these different things. Got to work with David Fincher and Kevin Spacey and all those guys, so it's pretty cool. And now I'm at Google. I've been here just a year in October. I'm just here in Irvine, and can't show you any of the work I've done because none of it ships because it's a big company. Things move a little bit slower. But there is a 20% project that I got to work on, which is kind of your side time that you give to other teams within Google. And this did go public and is going to roll out in cars in 2015. And so I was able to be on like the early stages of this product and worked on this team. So there's a quick little video I'll show It's basically putting Android in the car just like iOS is doing. So roll that.
Cars are integral to the way that people live their lives today. We use cars for taking our kids to school, we use our cars for commuting to work, but when we look at cars today, they're fundamentally disconnected vehicles.
People don't want to check their phones at the door when they get behind the wheel. So we partnered with auto manufacturers and technology partners to figure out the best way to bring Android into the car. Today we're announcing Android Auto, which extends the Android platform into the car. Android Auto combines the best of both worlds. You get the connected apps and services on your smartphone with the physical controls that were optimized for driving in your car. We had to go back to the drawing board and really take an experience that was designed for a smartphone and break it down to its bare essentials.
We focused it down to the features that the user really needs within the driving space. We've made Google Maps really easy to use for the car. We've got nice, easy to access touch targets and a simplified interface. The voice technology that we're using within the car is super conversational.
Your hands are on the wheel, your eyes are on the road.
Set a reminder to get gas on the way back to work. Pick up my dry cleaning. Remind me to get tickets on the way home.
Google brings you just the right information at just the right time. So when you set reminders while you're driving, your phone will remind you later on, even if you're outside the car. Android developers will soon be able to create entirely new experiences for the car.
We're really excited about this opportunity because for us, this is really very much at the beginning. And we're really going to go on a long journey with this.
Cool. So that's Android Auto. Most of you guys probably don't have an Android phone, but it'll be a similar experience to what you would experience in CarPlay. I think it's incredibly better than what Apple's doing, but that's my personal opinion. I'll talk about iOS and Android later. But overall, I moved to Google and I'm working on these really cool things, mainly because I want to be a kick-ass dad. I wanted to live by the beach with my kids, where my wife worked, and also be able to live where my in-laws and my parents live so they can know their grandparents. So a lot of this is really kind of me focusing on my family rather than my work. I also want to kick ass and take names. I want to build cool stuff. We're all creatives, we're all artists, and so I think that's obviously paramount. This is like our crutch. This is really all we want to do, so it creates imbalance. And if you want to talk about balance, I got a lot of stuff on that too. So I get this question a lot, and this is kind of what I have a hard time answering, kind of want to talk about today is people ask you, how'd you get to Google? It was kind of this paramount thing that I thought I would never achieve, and now I'm here. And I don't really know. So I was trying to figure out how I got to Google. And I think it was by challenging myself and making myself more uncomfortable. This is me playing pool or playing bowling. This is me bowling at Google. So I think venturing into the unknown is important. So in all of these cases, I had no idea what I was doing. So when I went to the startup, I was designing like print brochures and environmental graphics for conferences, very kind of, typical graphic design stuff, which is what I went to school for. Had never done anything on a mobile device. And so I took a job as a design director at a startup and had no idea what I was doing. And if I wouldn't have done that, it wouldn't have projected me to where I am today. And even in the case of Google, we're designing things like in the car, and even the stuff I'm doing that I can't talk about, it's stuff that I don't really even understand. I'm learning as I'm doing. And I think there's something really special that happens in that space. So I think learning by doing is a big deal. I think even this is bigger than tech, right? If you're a photographer, if you're a musician, if you do other creative things, pushing yourself and putting yourself in environments that really are unknown to you, I think there's a lot you can learn there, and that is almost the best way to learn, because you have to be scrappy. And I think it's the only way that I've learned, because this industry hasn't been around very long. There's starting to be like classes and curriculum around these things, but I learned by doing, and I think that that's a big deal. This is also very core to how Google works. Like at Google, you get promoted by doing the job that you're going to be promoted to. So you don't get put in a position to say, okay, now do your job. You actually have to just start doing things that are not at your rate or not at your level. And once you're doing the next job, you'll get promoted. So I think this is a very a good way to push yourself and to always challenge yourself. And I think that the growth is really exponential. You really have a lot of opportunity. So the second thing is seasoning your perspective. Grandmas to data analysts. At Netflix, I had to design for my kid and for my grandma. It's a consumer app. You had to work for everyone. It had to be very simple. No high detail. It was just about watching movies, right? That was one perspective, and I love designing consumer apps. I'm now here in Irvine working on Google Analytics and designing for this weird 1% niche of data analysts that like understand all of the happenings of the web. And they're two very different use cases. And so I think I took this. I even talked to Mark when I was interviewing at Google. He's like, "Are you sure you want to come down here and work on analytics?" He's like, "It's super nerdy stuff." And I was like, "No, I understand." He's like, "You could work on a lot of cool stuff at Mountain View, but I really want to move down here." And it has been a challenge, if I'm being completely honest. It isn't as fun, but it is challenging, and I am growing a lot. The one thing that when I say seasoning your perspective, is I now understand how enterprise software works. I now understand how a larger software application iterates compared to a small consumer application. And so if I never would have done this, I might have been a very good consumer designer. But for me, I feel like I'm becoming a better designer by challenging myself, moving to the unknown, and kind of changing my perspective a little bit. For me, I used to do try to do wedding photography for a while. I think this would be the same thing as like you do wedding photography to go shooting, a random metal band or something. That's what I used to do also. But like changing your perspective and seasoning that perspective, I think makes you approach your work in a different way. So looking outside of your medium, we all have our comfort zones. I think pushing that comfort zone will make you better creative. This is what I really want to talk about. I kind of blew through those first two topics. How much time do we have, Andy? Whatever. All right, I'm gonna keep you guys now. So I think we all need to realize that our bias is bullshit. And I say this kind of because we're in a safe space. We're all creatives, and we're creatives because we have perspective and we have taste, and we're taste makers. And I think that's a big privilege, but I also think there's a responsibility with that. And it's easy to say, this is my perspective, this is the best thing, this is how things should look. But if we never challenge the other side and never go on the other side of the aisle, I think our bias is really an excuse to judge. My example to this is iOS and Android. I actually just bought a 6 Plus and I'm back on iOS. There are things that I miss and I'm enjoying it, mainly just photo. But when I was at Netflix, I was designing mainly iOS applications, and we were making some upgrades to the Android application. At the time, this is like very old Android. It was pretty bad. And I kept asking all the engineers, like, what is this thing? Why does this work this way? And I had a really weird kind of aha moment. I was like, I think I should know these things if I'm the designer. Like, I should understand Android. So I committed to a year of being on Android, just so I could totally immerse myself in the ecosystem, understand its patterns. And I just came back. Like, that was almost 2 years ago. I kind of fell in love with Android. They kind of grew up a little bit. If you haven't been on Android in a couple of years, like, it's an insanely different operating system. And I fell in love with Android. I still think it's the better operating system. If we want to talk later, we can have that discussion over some whiskey. But we were in New York for like 3 hours debating this. But I never would have understood Android if I would have always just had my bias and said, no, iOS is better. It's Apple. They understand design. They're the elite. You might think iOS is better, but if you haven't tried Android, I don't believe you, right? Like, you don't have an opinion unless you've seen both sides. I think this is the same thing with, like, do you like Nikon or Canon? Like, you can't say you're a Canon guy if you've never shot a Nikon because you don't know film or digital, right? So I think if we're gonna take our responsibility of being creatives and making things beautiful and understanding taste and setting trends, we have to challenge ourselves to make sure we know what we're talking about. And I think it's hard to do because we like our little safe zones that we associate with. So I think understanding is better than judging. I think when we have a bias, we're judging rather than having an opinion and having understanding kind of both sides of it. And I'll kind of close with this more or less. Know your user. Most of you guys don't have users. You probably have customers or clients. This is very a typical saying in the user experience industry. We need to design for the people that are using our application. So in the same sense of me designing for my grandma or designing for an analyst, I think it's really important for us to know who's using or consuming or buying our art and our creations. And I think if we don't take ourselves out of our realm to understand this, I think we're failing. This is more a saying for me. Like, this is my struggle and what I've been learning as a creative, kind of getting to Google. And I think it was 3 years ago I was designing prints. Kind of crazy. That's not to brag. That's for me. Like, I don't really think I deserve to be here. I think these are things that I've been learning, and I think that us as creatives should constantly be thinking about is constantly seasoning ourselves, taking ourselves out of our own perspective, and really questioning our biases. I think that's it. Weekend party. Thank you guys.